flesh is looking rather pale, as if he's not feeling well. Perhaps it's because he's lost a lot of blood. His flesh feels cold and clammy. There are no signs of scratches or bruises on his flesh. This could mean that the murderer, assuming this wasn't a suicide, knew Dr. Carter well enough to get close and stab him without arousing any suspicion. Or it could just mean that Dr. Carter was completely taken by surprise when someone assaulted him from the shadows. Pippin has a glazed expression in his right eye, staring off into eternity. At least he faced his death with his eyes open. You poke Pippin's right eye. A tear trickles down his cheek. His right eye is somewhat bloodshot, as if he's been working long hours recently in preparing the ancient Egypt exhibit for public display. From the look in his eye, it appears that Dr. Carter was surprised to find a dagger being inserted in his chest. You poke him in the eye. His eyeball feels squishy. The pupil is very small, which is either a reaction to bright light or to a sudden shock of some kind. Perhaps for the first time in his life, Dr. Carter's hair is in disarray. It feels greasy to the touch. His hair is a bit greasy, as if he hasn't washed it today. It has a slight smell of cigarette smoke, which is probably from the party. Pippin's ear is unharmed. His ear feels cold. A close look reveals that Pippin kept his ears very clean. His mouth is gaping wide, showing you some fine dental work. This was a man who took pride in the appearance of his teeth. His mouth and tongue feel dry. No cavities in his teeth. The tongue is arched as if to say, You're not sure if the gaping mouth means he was trying to scream or that rigor mortis is setting in, stretching his face muscles. However, he has only been here a short time. Pippin isn't breathing, but you detect the smell of garlic on his breath. It isn't a pleasant smell. Pippin's nose appears to be undamaged. He does not appear to have suffered any blows to his face or nose. Keep your fingers out of Dr. Carter's nose. His nostrils are flared, as if in anger or surprise, in death as in life. He's looking down his nose at you. Dr. Carter's mustache is neatly trimmed. His mustache feels stiff. Although there are a couple of breadcrumbs caught in his mustache, they don't seem to be significant as evidence, particularly since you saw him eating bread at the party. Pippin's shirt is immaculate, except for a few streaks of blood. His tie is partially undone, which is something that never would have happened if Dr. Carter had been alive to notice it. You hear a disturbing gurgling noise when you poke Pippin in the chest. There is a wide cut in the shirt fabric where the dagger sliced through to Pippin's chest. The cut is slightly wider than the width of the blade, as if it moved to one side after it penetrated his body. Pippin has a flower in his lapel, but it looks quite innocent. It feels fake. A bit of water trickles out from the center of the flower. the flower is fake. It has no detectable smell. A tube runs from the back of the flower, behind the lapel, down to a squeeze bulb inside the vest. When you squeeze the bulb, a weak stream of water squirts you in the eye. A red fluid appears to be leaking out of Dr. Carter's chest wound. You lightly touch the blood with your finger. It's wet. The red fluid appears to be blood. This might explain Dr. Carter's pale appearance. Dr. Carter seems to have suffered a severe trauma to his chest area. You don't want to touch this dagger. It's evidence, and you don't know where it's been. A close look at the dagger reveals the words, "Made in Pittsburgh," stamped on the part of the blade that is not buried in Pippin Carter's chest. To your naked eye, the rough surface of the dagger handle doesn't appear to hold any fingerprints, but that's something for the coroner to examine in detail. Blood is coursing down the neatly buttoned tuxedo vest. The vest has a smooth, silky feel to it. Nice material. Studying the location of the dagger wound and its proximity to the vest, it's safe to conclude that the blood on the vest is coming out of the wound on Pippin's chest. There's a slight bulge in Pippin's jacket, as if he's carrying something in an inside pocket. The jacket is free of blood, but there is a bluish stain on one lapel. A close look and sniff at the stain makes you think that it's grape juice. The bulge on one side is ruining the carefully tailored lines of the tuxedo. When you reach into Pippin's tuxedo jacket, you find a notepad in his inner pocket. A notepad made of good quality paper. There's an imprint on the paper from the previous message written on the pad, but it's too faint to read. Unreadable words are imprinted on the paper. You pick it up and place it in your purse. By removing the notepad from Pippin's pocket, you have improved the appearance of his tuxedo jacket. If he was still alive, he'd certainly thank you. There is nothing else in Pippin's tuxedo jacket except lint, which you don't need.
You scream like a banshee, lass. Did you kill the man then?
No, I just walked in here and found him.
I suppose that would explain your screaming then. Did you see the murderer?
No.
All right, I'll talk to you later after you've had a chance to calm down. Just don't try to leave the building.
Excellent work. Your father would be proud of you. Having already interrogated the guests, Detective O'Reilly is now discussing the murder with the staff members as they leave the party. It would be best if you don't interfere.
Hi, Miss Bowe. I'm Ernie Leach. Dr. Carrington told me you could stay a while and talk to the staff. I've got to lock the doors, so just come and find me when you're ready to leave. Dr. C also has a key, but you don't want to bother him about that.
Thank you, Mr. Leach.
Just be careful where you go. Wolf will get upset if he finds you downstairs. See you later.
Did you manage to learn anything from your interviews, Detective O'Reilly?
Don't bother your little head about it, lass.
It's my job, sir.
This is an official murder investigation, Miss Bowe. Do not be interfering.
Oh, I don't mean to interfere. I just want to know what's going on. Any leads so far?
Dr. Carter died as the result of someone sticking a gift shop dagger in his chest. What more do you need to know?
Well, for one thing, who did it?
Someone who didn't like him, that's my guess.
Brilliant deduction.
If you think that you can do better.
I can try.
Oh, wunderbar. Now we've got the amateurs involved.
I may not be a detective, but I'm terribly clever. I've solved murders before.
Just stay out of me way, lass, and don't destroy the evidence.
Certainly not.
Yeah. Humph.
Good evening, Countess.
Good evening, Miss Bowe. He was a rather good-looking fellow, don't you think? Of course, I was at the party when he died, surrounded by witnesses, but I've already told Mr. O'Reilly about all that. Well, I do wish they wouldn't let the handyman in during social functions. He's not even dressed properly. Oh dear, I find bones quite distressing, Miss Bowe. Why isn't that one of those darling little Egyptian thingies? Oh, I'm sure there's nothing on that to concern us, Miss Bowe. Oh, could that be some of that cute little Egyptian writing? How charming! No, thank you, Miss Bowe. It's not quite my style, you know. I'm sure that's absolutely fascinating, but I don't really have time to read it, dear girl.
Try to control your violent impulses, Laura. This is the Old Masters Gallery. This makes you feel like you're in the Old Masters Gallery. You magnify the importance of the Old Masters Gallery. It's too dark up there to see the high vaulted ceiling clearly. Although you're an overachiever, you're definitely reaching too high this time. It's too high to see with a magnifying glass, much as you'd like to. You marvel at the stylish architectural embellishments which festoon the border where the wall meets the ceiling. You're not that tall. It's too high to see with the magnifying glass. A marble bench, provided so that patrons can sit and ponder the amount of culture oozing through the air of this room. The white marble bench feels cold. You recall from your physics class that marble has a low specific temperature. The bench is made of highly polished, white Carrara marble. A fine example of neo-quasi-Italian Renaissance sculpture by Alberto Ravioli. Sculpted in 1525, the humanoid statue is called, appropriately enough, Ruminations on Death and Dismemberment. It's an expensive work of art on display in a museum. Your father would be appalled if he knew you wanted to touch it. Overcoming your temporary insanity, you change your mind. The humanoid sculpture is not accurate to the tiniest of details. In fact, you aren't even sure what the details are. Alberto Ravioli was still new at sculpting when he created this particular figure. It's one of seeming billions of ballerina sculptures that were made by Dagger, who was something of a ballerina fancier. The features of the ballerina are accurate to the tiniest of details. One of the many paintings in Michelangelo's Battle of the Nudes series. Don't touch the nudes. You closely inspect the nudes in Michelangelo's paintings, admiring his studies of the human form. These paintings were completed while he was still learning his trade as the apprentice to a great artist you've probably never heard of.
Good evening, Dr. Carrington.
Good evening, Miss Bow. Good evening. Dr. Carter's demise was truly a loss to us all, despite his pushy, overinflated, headline-grabbing ego. At least he completed his work on the Ancient Egypt exhibit before he passed on. Dedicated chap, I'll say that for him.
Any idea who might have wanted to kill him?
The man had enemies crawling out of the woodwork, Miss Bow. Practically everyone's a suspect, if you ask me.
Everyone? Including you?
Well, perhaps I should say everyone except myself, since I was at the fundraising event when Dr. Carter was taken from us. Terrible thing, really. There's a fellow who gets the job done. You can't help but admire his industriousness, eh what? We have many exciting paleontological specimens here, Miss Bow. Talk to Dr. Miklos if you're interested in learning more. Ah yes, you'll see that symbol throughout our Egyptian exhibit. It seems to be a staple of ancient Egyptian theology and philosophy. Miss Bow, I'd read for pleasure. I can't imagine Dr. Carter would possibly have written anything personal that I would find the least bit interesting. Talk to Dr. Miklos about that if you want to know more. She translates hieroglyphs as a hobby. I'm sure you find that interesting, Miss Bow, but I do not. No, thank you, Miss Bow. I never wear jewellery.
Art is work by Fra Roberto Glisoni, painted in 1492, commissioned by Queen Isabella to keep him busy finding a new way to paint instead of discovering the New World so that Christopher Columbus could do it instead. When you touch the painting, you smear a bit of the paint as if it's still damp. Examining the painting carefully, you notice that some of the strong-smelling paint looks smeared. Two Brothers Drinking in a Tavern by Rick Morgan, Dutch master, 1444. The swirling brush strokes are characteristic of the Morgan school of painting. The cracking of the paint is characteristic of age. Trouble on Two Legs by Dennis Lewis, date unknown. Painting discovered in an attic near Bordeaux, France, hidden behind a case of chocolate. A close look makes it clear that this artist was fond of chocolate. There are chocolate chips embedded in the paint. Cart Before the Horse by Suzette Olive-Goudoni, 1481. Although the paint is old and cracking, the spirit of the artist can still be seen in the bold strokes made by the paintbrush. Portrait of a Young Man by Marcello Fleming, Italian master, 1550. It's amazing that you can still smell the slight odor of oil paint on this canvas, as if it were painted only a week ago. Perhaps the previous owners took excellent care of the painting to preserve its delicate beauty. Musings on Cyberspace by John Wentworth, the Flemish master, painted in 1533. At close range, you notice the strong smell of oil paint. Despite the age of the painting, it seems to be in marvelous condition, as if it were painted only yesterday. A typical light-hearted painting by anonymous Bosch called A Heartwarming Story, depicting dead humans being tormented by skeletons and demons in hell. Feels like a painting by anonymous Bosch, who is known for the distinctive texture of his canvases, among other things. The oil paint on the canvas is old and cracked, but you can still see the characteristic brush strokes of anonymous Bosch, who painted with human bones instead of brushes. One of the skeletons in the Bosch painting appears to be holding an object that glints in the light. An authentic recreation, at least in Bosch's mind, of happy-go-lucky skeletons tormenting a dead king named Graham. They appear to have stolen a key from the king, which one of them is placing in their treasure barrel. It feels like a painting by anonymous Bosch. Now that you've touched it, a little voice in the back of your mind reminds you that the oil from your finger could eventually destroy the old painting. Whoops! Inspecting the painting carefully, you note the bloody quality of the red pigment and recall that Bosch was known for the use of human blood in his paintings. It's an actual skeleton key glued to the painting as if it's being held by one of the skeletons. That Bosch was a stickler for realism. This skeleton key is inscribed with eerily articulated markings, the weird orthography of a long dead tongue. It offers no clue as to what it unlocks. Pandora's box, perhaps? Jeepers! The shiny key on the painting even feels real, probably because it is. Although you have a natural attraction to shiny objects, this one is firmly attached to the painting and obviously can't be removed by hand. You hear muffled voices coming through the door to Yvette's office.
Thank you for coming to see me, Olympia. This is very nice of you.
You're very welcome, my dear. What can I do for you?
Oh, you see, I found this strange bone, and I said to myself, Yvette, if anyone can tell you what this is, it would be Olympia.
A bone, you say? How fascinating. Where did you find it?
I found it right here in the museum. Here it is, Doctor.
Now, let me see. Ha ha! Yvette, you silly girl. This is a chicken bone.
It is?
Yes, of course. For it is still greasy. You got this at dinner, didn't you?
Oh, you have got me, Olympia. I was playing the little joke on you.
You are a funny girl, Yvette, but I am quite fond of you.
Olympia, we are the good friends, no? I have the problem I wish to talk to you about.
Oh, certainly. What is it?
Come closer so I can whisper it to you. It is very personal, and I want no one to overhear.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh my.
This door is locked. The geometric pattern of the tiles on the floor, which remind you of a late Roman mosaic, and the general style of the room with its marble statuary, is a definite reminder that you're in a museum. It feels like it's part of the downstairs hallway. This room is practically immaculate. Even under close scrutiny, you can't find any dust. It's a rather attractive wall. The wall feels rough under your fingertips. Upon close inspection, you determine that it is indeed a wall. What a handsome fellow. Let's see what the plaque says. Caesar Augustus, BC 63 to AD 14. Octavian, great-nephew and adopted son of Julius Caesar, he assumed the name Augustus after his sound defeat of Mark Antony left him supreme master of the Roman world. He was the first of the true Roman emperors, not counting Julius, who didn't live long enough to enjoy the title, and established the Pax Romana throughout the empire. His wife murdered him with a poisoned fig. He was a pretty nice fellow for an emperor, and everybody missed him. Feels like cool marble. It's made of marble. Oh my, he looks dour. Let's see who he is. Tiberius, BC 42 to AD 37. Tiberius disliked most everyone and practiced the strictest economy with funds devoted to public amusement. Consequently, most everyone disliked him. Although he was perceived by the upper classes as a suspicious, ill-natured tyrant throughout his reign, he ruled the empire with a firm, capable hand, and Rome prospered. He was most probably smothered by his nephew Caligula, although no one is quite sure to this day. Nobody missed him. It's made of pitted marble. Oh dear, he looks somewhat dissipated. Let's read his plaque. Caligula, BC 37 to AD 41. Caligula started out a decent enough chap, but shortly after he became emperor, he was seized with a severe illness which unsettled his reason. Consequently, his name has become a byword for frantic cruelties and insane imaginings. The grotesque atrocities of his reign were ended when he was assassinated by the Praetorian Guard in a grimy tunnel beneath the Colosseum. Nobody missed him either. It's made of fine Corinthian marble. There's a thoughtful-looking gentleman. What does his plaque say? Claudius, BC 10 to AD 54. Enthroned by the Praetorian Guard after the assassination of his odious nephew Caligula, Claudius accomplished much for the empire. Although weak and timid by nature, he proved to be a noble statesman. He built the famous Roman aqueducts and conducted a successful campaign against Britain. His fourth wife murdered him with a poisoned mushroom. She didn't miss him, but the rest of the empire did. A close inspection reveals that this is not real marble. It's an imitation marble invented by Claudius Brutus Apollonius Biggus Blimpus Maximus, known to his friends as Fatus Rotundus. Fatus was ahead of his time, since the world was not yet ready for synthetic marble. Fatus also invented radar, but nobody knew what to do with it. Radar technology was then forgotten until World War II, and Fatus never got any credit for it. Fatus Rotundus died in obscurity, his genius unrecognized. You feel a blush creeping over your face as you look at the perfect body of Rodin's famous thinker. Tentatively, you touch the cool bronze. It feels as smooth as it looks. What perfect burnishing! You can't imagine how long it must take to create a thing of such beauty. The sculpture has a beautiful face. Its strong but sensitive lines remind you of Steve. Looking a little closer, you detect a seam along the sculpture's otherwise flawless neck. Yes, there is definitely a seam in the statue's neck. It seems to go most of the way around. There's a tiny hinge on the back of the neck. This is the door to Yvette Delacroix's office. The door sports an elegant lacquered finish, but nothing in the way of telltale clues. The transom makes you suspect that this door leads to somebody's office. As much as you'd like to look in, you have no way of reaching the transom. It's too high to look at with the magnifying glass. A scuffed wooden floor. You touch the floor. It's fairly clean. Now you're absolutely certain it's the floor. An Art Deco rug. Yvette covered the rug with the desk because she hates the Art Deco style, even though it's very trendy right now. Tiny dust mites are barely visible, crawling around in the fibers and dust in the rug. A used piece of carbon paper. The typewriter keys have made clean impressions in the carbon paper, but the letters are unreadable against a dark background. You pick it up and place it in your purse. There are words typed on the carbon paper, but you can't read them this way. Backlit, you can read the words typed into the carbon paper. Ernie, Big Al called to see if you could do some fencing for him next week. He says he'll make it worth your while to do a fast fencing job. The light bulb is on. You find it very illuminating.
Ouch! The light bulb is too hot to remove.
on the desk is neatly organized. The edges of the desk are shiny, as if someone leans on them a lot. The surface of the desk is very clean, as if it's dusted or wiped regularly. It's a desk chair. It feels like a wood chair. The chair is made of wood, and it smells like Yvette's perfume. One of those new portable typewriters. At a mere £50, you can take it anywhere. Well, you could if it was useful to you, which it isn't, so forget it. You don't need to type anything. The typewriter keys hold fingerprints that probably belong to Yvette. It's an intercom slave unit. Since it's just a slave intercom unit, it has no buttons and can only receive messages. A ceiling lamp. You can't reach it, nor would you want to. Stop that! You'll burn out your retinas trying to examine the light with a magnifying glass. Watercolor painting, Predators Stalking Prey by Yvette Delacroix, 1925. Don't touch it, you might harm the paint. Nice watercolor brushwork, even though it was painted during a turbulent period in the life of the artist. Watercolor painting, Perverse Pleasures by Yvette Delacroix, 1926. You think about touching the painting, then consider the subject matter, blush, and change your mind. The marvelous thrusting brushwork demonstrates the artist's close association with the subject, in which she obviously finds deep meaning and significance. Watercolor painting, Purple Pollywogs Playing in Puddles by Yvette Delacroix, 1924. Fearing that you might damage the delicate watercolors in the painting, you think better of touching it. Mediocre watercolor brushwork, but subtle nuances of shading and form admirably serve to get Yvette's point across. A matched pair of crossed battle axes left over from this room's previous occupant. They're too high on the wall. Besides, you have no use for them. They're too high on the wall to be examined that way. There's a homey old Norwegian phrase stitched into this needlepoint. An axe in the hand is worth two in the bush. Words to live by. Nice material. Nice needlepoint stitchery with some dust stuck to it. The file label reads, Dead Things. The file label reads, Medieval Armor Collection. The file label reads, Life Mask Collection. The file label reads, Insurance. The file label reads, Paleontological Anomalies. The file label reads, Renaissance Masters Collection. The file label reads, Life Mask Field Survey. The file label reads, Accounting. The file label reads, Personnel Files. The file label reads, Machu Picchu Field Survey. The file label reads, Taxidermy Records. The file label reads, Sexual Eccentricities. The file label reads, Egyptian Artifacts. The file label reads, Museum Artifact Research Exchanges. The file label reads, Alcoholic Preservation Collection. The file label reads, Shannon Rat Collection. The wood file drawer is locked. Yvette is the only person who can open it. It's a Venus flytrap. Don't even think about touching the flytrap. It's a meat-eating plant that's been getting a steady diet of red meat ever since Yvette bought it, and it's getting hungry again. A handwritten card attached to the plant pot reads, To Yvette from Olympia. Thanks for the wild night with the mummies. It's a waste basket full of waste. Assorted garbage fills the waste basket. Pencil shavings, torn typing paper, fingernail clippings, carbon paper, an apple core, and an empty bottle of French champagne. A table that formerly belonged to King Louis VIII of France. It fell on hard times and now resides in Yvette's office in the Lion Decker Museum. The table bears the mark of King Louis VIII of France. A paper cutter with a sharp blade. Better not touch it, it's sharp and dangerous. The paper cutter blade looks well maintained and sharp enough to cut through almost anything. It's a diploma with Yvette Delacroix's name on it. An advanced degree in French from Ball State University to be exact. That's not the sort of thing you want to examine too closely. It's the door to President Carrington's office. The door is made of mahogany. It's a transom. It's too high. You hear muffled voices coming through the door to Yvette's office.
Come a little closer, Monsieur Nazir. I am wanting to show you something.
And what would that be, Miss Delacroix?
Look at the palm of my hand.
It is a lovely palm, to be sure. But what am I supposed to see?
You see this line, monsieur? It is my love line.
My goodness, Miss Delacroix. It goes all the way up your arm and disappears up your sleeve.
Would you like to see where it ends up, Ramses? Have you ever been to Paris, Ramses?
No, I can't say I ever have.
Then you have never seen the Eiffel Tower?
No.
Well, by all means, let me show you.
Miss Delacroix, please. I'm a married man. Oh, dear.
Have you forgotten who let you into the museum, Ramses? Have you forgotten who showed you the secret room for your little ceremonies? You haven't, have you?
No, I haven't, but...
Then you will let me give you the grand tour of the tower, no?
We'll have to go somewhere else. I don't feel safe here.
Lead the way, monsieur.
The night sky is seen from New York City in 1926. A very big building. Skylight supporting struts. A painting of the New York skyline by Sterling Waldorf Carlton, dated 1920. A pillar that plays a supporting role. The tribal death mask of the Hottentots. The mask of El Whoopintot, the god who scares Hottentot children. Hottentot elders told stories of how El Whoopintot would jump down from the roofs of Hottentot mud huts to steal the noses off children who didn't behave properly. Anthropologists attribute the El Whoopintot stories to tribal myth, but the ancient records reveal that many Hottentots lived their adult lives without noses. There's a moral here somewhere. The Mask of El Whoopintot, the Hottentot god of war. Hottentot warriors would invoke their god of war with the battle cry, "Boop boop a doop." This battle cry reputedly struck fear into the hearts of their enemies, who were usually the Poppintots who lived across the river. The war mask of the Poppintot tribe. The Poppintots would strike fear into the hearts of their enemies, the Hottentots, by wearing these masks into battle and screaming their battle cry, "Pop goes the weasel," which translates roughly as, "Go back to your own side of the river, you Hottentot wimps." The Hottentots hated the Poppintots primarily because the Poppintots kept stealing all the Hottentot women. Actually, the Hottentot women kept defecting to the Poppintot tribe because they had better food, better villages, and men who bathed regularly. You might say that the Poppintots were the first yuppies. A fireplace built by a careful craftsman to last hundreds of years. Charcoal. The charcoal smudges your fingers. You pick it up and place it in your purse. A lump of charcoal from a fire. The charcoal appears to be composed of charcoal. Rubbing the charcoal over the notepad has made the imprint readable. Yvette 8 o'clock Egyptian rum, Tut 10:15 Egyptian rum, Carrington 11 o'clock his office. It's a portrait of the former Leyendecker Museum president, Sterling Waldorf Carlton. It might be a trick of the light, but one side of the painting seems closer to the wall than the other. You see the numbers 0 through 9 on the circular combination dial. It defies you to try entering a combination. Magnifying the combination dial gives you no clues, since the dial seems relatively unused and shows no signs of wear. Nice try, though. Carrington's desk. The president's chair. A desk lamp. It's the only telephone in the museum. As with so many other things in this museum, this phone is dead. It appears that someone has cut the telephone cord, removing any chance you might have had of communication with the outside world. Using your remarkable powers of deduction, you conclude that this little book contains phone numbers. It's made of leather. Phone numbers: T. Dargan, WP 5125. R. Williams, BL 4468. I Did It, SH 0244. Be Safe, KL 0527. U. Hoser, LI 2077. And yet, KL4004. E. Leach, BR1833. The handwriting is neat and dark. The personal diary of former museum president Sterling Waldorf Carlton. Not wanting to remove evidence from the crime scene, particularly when you must have broken some sort of law by opening the president's personal wall safe, you decide not to remove the diary. Glancing through the diary and the male handwriting within, it refers to Sterling's growing fear that the Countess only married him for his money and that she could be planning to kill him. The final entry reads, Yvette fears her too. Countess and Ziggy at 1 a.m. Medieval armor display. The note is written in a man's handwriting, probably belonging to Dr. Carrington. Some desk clock. Yes, it's definitely a desk clock. It says made in Switzerland in the fine print on the clock face, which you can barely read due to the glare on the glass. It's President Carrington's stuffed porcupine, Spiny Norman.
Ouch! Those quills are sharp!
The stiff quills look especially sharp under magnification. It's the latest thing in office telecommunications technology, an intercom master unit. You touch the intercom unit, completely missing the buttons, and the whole point apparently. The 6-button intercom allows the president to talk and listen to people in other offices. The intercom crackles and you overhear a conversation.
Oh, I so love your scars, Wolfie. Show them to me again, darling.
They are yours to admire, my strudel.
Hoopa! Very, very nice.
Yeah, and I have this new bone for your collection.
Ah, such a large bone, too. Where did you find it?
I've been carrying this bone around for years. It is yours now, my Fräulein. You may do with it what you will.
I'm impressed by your generosity, Wolfie.
The intercom crackles and you overhear a conversation.
Oh, my lover, how do you manage to do it so many times?
Sure, a man's got to do what a man's got to do.
And you do it so well.
Try and keep your voice down, lass. Someone might hear us.
Oh, I do not care, my amour. Life, she is something we only enjoy once.
Sure, and begorra, I do this at least 50 times a day to stay in shape.
50 times, ooh la la, and what do you call this movement?
Sit-ups, lass. I also do 50 push-ups each day, then I run a few miles.
The intercom crackles and you overhear a conversation.
I'm telling you, pal, you're not supposed to be down here.
Nothing poisonal, Mac, but Archie said I could scope the place out.
Well, he didn't say anything to me about it, neither did Mr. Hamlet, and he's the chief of security.
It's okay, Mac. Don't get used britches in an uproar. Trust me.
I'd only trust you about as far as I can throw you.
Hey now, there ain't no need for fiscal violence, Mac.
I'll give you 10 seconds. If you aren't out of my sight by then, I'm gonna hurt you real bad.
You're touchy, ain't ya? But I was done down here anyways. See you around, Mac.
Not if I can help it.
When you press the button, all you hear is static.
Hello? This is Laura Bow. Hello? Murderer, if you can hear me, give yourself up. You haven't got a chance. Stop these senseless killings. If the person who stole the Dagger of Amon rock can hear this, and your guilty conscience is bothering you, please leave the dagger on President Carrington's desk. There will be no questions asked. Is this doing anything? Is it hooked up? Can anyone hear me? These newfangled inventions are such a caution. Can anyone hear me?
It's the bookcase. The collected catalogues of the Smithsonian Museum. Numerous hefty tomes on the topic of medieval armor. First editions of classic literature. A large format illustrated version of Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. It's a magnified copy of Crime and Punishment. You notice that this is one of the earliest translations of Crime and Punishment into English. The edge of a file folder is sticking out of the book, as if it has been hidden there. There's a police file hidden in the book. A handwritten note attached to the police file reads, "Remember our deal." You pick it up and place it in your purse. By reading a few lines from the book, you gather that the theme of this book is that man pays for his crimes against men by suffering for those crimes. It's amazing how much meaning you can get from a few well-chosen words. You read a police report on the criminal career of one Watney Little, conman extraordinaire. The file contains an amazing list of offences, mostly fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and various degrees of larceny. Glancing at the top of the page, you noticed that the investigations were conducted by Scotland Yard. You also noticed that the last entry describes Little's recent escape from Dartmoor prison. Clipped to the outside of the folder is a small handwritten note that reads simply, "Remember our deal." Apparently this file was provided in exchange for somebody's silence or service. Admire the wood pulp patterns in the paper. Locked drawers. You pick it up and place it in your purse. An incandescent light bulb, 40 watts. The filament inside the bulb is intact.